Hi everyone! Today I'm really excited to show you a really fun frosting technique that is sort of a watercolory effect. You may have seen it on my blog a while back when I celebrated my first blogiversary and did this beachy teal and pink watercolory, like I said, sort of looking cake with sprinkles on top. And I'm going to show you that today. It's such a fast and easy way to frost a cake that I think is really unique and has impact. And we've got a crumb-coated chocolate layer cake. Doesn't matter what kind of cake, doesn't matter how many layers, as long as it's crumb-coated, so a thin layer of untinted frosting, to lock in the crumbs. And then what we're doing is we're going to put one beautiful layer of frosting on top of the cake for this effect. What I've done is I've tinted 3 colors of a plain whipped vanilla frosting, that recipe that I tend to use a lot on the blog for my sweeter frosting option. My husband loves this frosting, so do my kids, and so do I. And it really takes to color nicely. I found because you whip the butter first, it tends to make it more pale. So it takes the colors nicely that I tend to like. And as much as I love Swiss meringue buttercream, which I find that coloring it, tinting it, is more of a challenge just because of the deeper sort of buttery tone to it. But either way, whatever you're comfortable with, as long as you can get the colors that you're happy with. And I have 3 here. I've got a really pale sort of sea foamy color, and then I have a darker version of the same color. And I used sky blue for that. I think it's a Maricolor. No, it's a Maricolor sky blue. And because, like I said, there's a slight ivory tinge to this frosting, but not too yellow, it does take a slightly turquoise effect when we put the sky blue in there, which I really like. And then I have a lavender, just for fun. So those are my color choices. And you can mix and match them any way you want. Really, you can't go wrong. I find this blended look really pretty no matter what. You can experiment, of course. Although, like I said, it's a one-shot deal with this cake. As far as if we overblend it, that's it. It kind of loses effect. So I'm just going to give this frosting a little stir, get the air bubbles out of it. And just as I would with a normal cake, meaning a one-color cake, I'm going to put one big dollop, more than a dollop, of frosting right on top. And using my favorite tool, a small offset spatula, you can use a bigger one, it's whatever you're comfortable with. We're going to start to push the frosting out to the sides. Again, just as we would if we were frosting a regular old cake. And the goal here is to get it, because we're not going to have a chance to come back to start smoothing this out like we could normally, we're going to make sure it's relatively smooth and nice, and we want that color to extend over the edge enough so that it will carry down, both for the function of making it smooth and also for the color to be shown a little bit on the side. So there we go. We're just going to hold this like this and let the turntable do the work. Turntable is key. And I want this to be pretty much ready to go. I don't want to have to rework it. So I think that looks pretty good. Can do a little bit of work after. And then I keep a little low pan of water here, of hot water, so that I can kind of rinse off and dry off my palette knife. Now you can use a straight palette knife for the sides, or you can continue on with the offset. I use both. I just kind of grab whatever's there. So what we're going to do now, actually I think I will use the straight one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the darker blue, and just as I would, again, but I'm going to start at the bottom this time compared to doing a regular cake where we'd start, up here. And I'm going to go across, and I'm just going to add, bit by bit, a nice thick layer of the frosting. Now we've crumb coated the cake, so technically our crumbs should not come through, and we definitely don't want them to show through. So we're going to put a nice thick layer of this. And we're going to try to keep it sort of to the bottom third of the cake. That's what and again, it's, you know, there's no right or wrong, but it does create a nice look when it's divided that way. And every time is different, which is kind of fun, because you just really never know how your cake's going to look 100%. It's like a work of art. You know, every one is different and unique. So there we go. We're going to start at the bottom, and I just want to make sure, we're going to go back over this, and a lot of this frosting is going to come off, so I just want to make sure it's not too thin. So that looks pretty good for that. And what I'm going to do is now, because we're blending, we could even just, doesn't matter if there's frosting on there, but just from habit, we're going to clean this off first before dipping into here. And here we are with our light seafoam green. And I'm going to go ahead and do exactly the same thing in the middle. And at this point, don't worry if the colors kind of blend. You just don't want it to fall too far down, like I'm letting that happen. And what's really kind of cool is you'll see that effect starting to happen right away, because I'm getting a little bit of purple in there. I'm getting darker blue in there, and I'm just going to go all the way around. This is so fun, you guys. It's so fast. You know, like if you're doing a buttercream cake, you want something cool for a birthday, you know, even a wedding. Like doing this stacked up, you know, do a 2-3 tier cake like this. Beautiful, especially for a summer wedding. And the colors really do set the tone for this. So you could really change the whole vibe. Little girl's birthday party, you know, all shades of pink. So here we go. So just like a regular cake now, I'm going to kind of bring that, I want that purple to show through on the sides as well. I made that mistake the first time I did this cake. I overworked it and I ended up losing a lot of the pink that was on top. So at this point, I can just go ahead, I may add a little bit more of this light green, just to make sure I have enough carried through. And don't worry if it starts to look goopy and messy like this. This is the fun part. This is where it really blends nicely together. And if you pick colors that are complementary, you can't go wrong. So there we go. So now, as far as smoothing the sides, again with a regular frosting of a cake, we can either use a bench scraper to get that really nice smooth look, or we can use our large straight palette knife. It's totally personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and use this palette knife. And what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to clean it off. Probably not totally necessary just because of the look we're going with here, but I'm going to hold it at a slight angle like this. Not totally flat, and I'm not going to touch the bottom all the way to the bottom of the turntable, or else we're going to get sort of a funky pattern or like a ripple. So we want to hold it as straight as we can, 90 degrees, and as far as up and down, and then at a slight angle here, we're going to go all the way across. We're going to let the turntable do the work for the most part. And again, if we overblend, we're going to lose that distinction of all three colors, which is really turning into about a dozen colors here, a dozen shades. So we just want to work it enough so that we can get a little, you know, a little bit of an edge sticking up and through. There we go. And again, I'm so afraid to overwork it. But it's looking pretty good. And this kind of cake is never going to be perfectly smooth because, again, if you overdo it. So that looks pretty good. I just want to make sure. Sometimes I like to use a small one when I'm just working at the top just to get that, if I just want to get that little edge. But actually, we're almost there. So pretty. Is it weird when someone says their own cake is pretty? I don't know. Okay. So, there we go. So now what we're going to do is, we can perfect a little bit. We can work more at the bottom. Right now I'm going to do the top. So I'm going to make sure my small offset spatula is clean, and I dip it in warm water. I do this even with regular cake. Dip it in warm water and wipe it off, and the heat that's conducted, you can do this with anything metal, so any of your, your bench scraper, your spatulas, that heat is conducted just enough in that spatula to sort of cut through the butter, just enough to really smooth it out. So working towards yourself, you're going to hold the spatula like this and just kind of pull in one little motion, and you're going to have a lot of excess, which you're going to wipe back into your bowl. And then you're going to dip random snacks into later, like me. And you don't have to rinse it every time, but you can. Of course, it never hurts. But you can keep going. You don't need to rinse it every time. So we're going to go all the way around. We're taking quite a bit off the top because we really piled it on. But the reason we do that is so that there's room to remove without taking half the crumbs and cake with you. Okay, so we're almost finished with the top. And when you get used to this goes so fast, you'd be amazed. Okay, so a little bit showing through there. But again, with cake, you know what? I actually don't love it when it's totally perfect. I like when things are just a little bit more organic. We used to sort of obsess about the colors being, and the smoothness, everything being perfect, but it's actually really appealing when things are kind of fluffy and imperfect. So I didn't say that yet. See? That's growth. So now I'm just going to, kind of play a little bit with it so that I'm happy with the sides and the top. I don't want to overdo it. And now is a good time to decide. We can sort of leave it like that. I actually like it like that. And the bottom, it's kind of layered feeling, like it's not perfectly, but I don't mind that with this. So it's totally up to you, but that is how we get that nice blended effect. And I'm just going to finish off the bottom here. Now you'll see it's kind of goopy because I have a little grip between my wax paper, which I just use for cleanup purposes, and the cake, so it kind of goops. So what I do is, I'll show you after we just pick it up and wipe that off, but I just find it easier so it's not always in my palette knife's not always in contact with the turntable. I'm just going to take some of the excess. Whoops, see, but our white's showing through, so we're going to maybe put that back. There we go. And now what we do is, I like to, now this is on an 8-inch cake board, a thin cake board. There. Now we'll just kind of clean that up. So what I do is fold that up, take a look at it this way, and you can even finish it kind of while you're holding it. I tend to do sprinkles because that's just kind of how I am. So we could go ahead and put some sprinkles on there, and we'll just put that back down now. There we go. So what do you think, guys? Kind of fun, right? And what I love is that, every color combination is going to yield a totally different cake. So I've gone ahead and put this on a little cake stand, and really, you can still, even at this point, just kind of take another look at it now that it's, at more of eye level, and go ahead and just, blend in a little more. You can heat this up with our little hot water pan there, and then go across and, just blend a little more if you think it needs it, So once you're happy with it, that's really it. And I love it. I also, like I said, I like to just go ahead and we'll just put some sprinkles on it just for fun and kind of carry the blue through. Nothing crazy. Here we go. And usually I do this on a cookie sheet because usually I get them all over the entire house. And then we can add some. And if you like it a little more sort of organic and a little more natural, then just as it was, I think was beautiful as well. There you go, guys. So there is our sort of watercolor beachy cake. And I hope that helps, and I look forward to bringing you more techniques through video.